Hey, Tony and Kris, once again for the Pump House Records podcast. And we are super excited about this because we're talking to somebody who is kind of a trailblazer, a trendsetter, somebody who, the first, you always love to talk to people who have achieved something before anyone else. Jenee Fleenor is here. And just out of the gate, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, even though it happened a while ago. But what did it feel like to be the first female nominated for and winning Musician of the Year for the CMA?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I do remember I was pulling into a session and my phone was going off like a casino. This is for nomination day. And I had I mean, of course, maybe I dreamed of being nominated, but it wasn't like, yeah, this time I'm going to be nominated. Nothing like that. I just looked down at my phone and it just literally sounded like a casino. You've been nominated for CMA. And I never really thought much about the whole being the first female. Yeah. And they started saying, you're the first female that's ever been nominated. And then, I mean, when I'm in sessions, I'm usually the only female. So I guess that's probably true too. But to be, of course I got really emotional. We were talking about, I can cry sometimes at the drop of a hat. So if I put myself back there, it was so emotional. And, to take that all in and everyone that was congratulating me and calling me and sending me flowers and all those things, it was just a really sweet time. And then fast forward to now, like I see it a lot like on my social media side where I get a lot of messages from females and just saying that I'm an inspiration for them. So that's what makes me emotional now, is to like feed into those women and girls out there that are dreaming about doing this, because I dreamed for so long.
What's the time?
We're only like 3 minutes in.
3 minutes in. Okay, so now we know where the bar is set.
This is very exciting. This is going to be fun. We don't even have to try.
So there you go. Yeah, you hit the sweet spot. 3 minutes.
It is such a big deal, and I think it's cry-worthy. I'm a crier too, so first I'll just admit that. In an industry especially where we have heard so much in the last few years, I mean, not only musicians, but artists who aren't feeling like they're getting a fair shake, who are female, and an industry that kind of turned its nose up at some really talented women. For you to even get this situation happening and have people go, oh, wait a second, that's huge.
Yeah. And, I know a lot of females in the session world that should have been nominated a long time ago. And I hope there's a lot more that are nominated.
Not us. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Middle-aged white men, we're the worst.
and then just thinking about so many of the artists that I've played, like female artist records that I've played on, that I'm like, why is this not making waves? And there's so much. I feel like more are definitely now than 4 years ago or so. But yeah, I do that often. I'm like, this girl's got it. This girl's got it. And, I remember a time and they're like, well, the songs aren't good enough. And I'm like, bull.
Right?
Bull crap.
When you say you can look at an artist, or when you get around an artist and you go, this one's got it or that one's got it. Do you have an example of an artist that the first time you met him, you were like, him or her, that you were like, wow, I'm doing a session with them, they've got it?
I'd say John Pardee. And John is really what broke it for me as a session musician. His first number one was my first number one to play on. And just to be along for that journey was amazing. But gosh, I played with John for like 10 years now, 10, 12 years ago. So looking back then, and there was a lot of different artists I had played showcases with back then. And, so you're kind of getting this view of like, okay, this one got a record deal, this one got a record deal. But, this business is hard and you just never know what's going to shake out. But John was one that I was like, I think he's going to cut through all this. He always knew who he was. He knew his sound. He always stayed true to that, always surrounded himself with great songwriters and is a great writer. And I remember, 15 years ago or so, I was thinking about being an artist, and I would have meetings and stuff, and they said, you got to have your elevator speech. And for me as a session musician, I just love playing on all different styles of music. And I just always love making the fiddle, like proving you wrong that that's like a rock song. And you said there can't be fiddle, but I had to prove you wrong. But as an artist, I did a few showcases back then. And I remember the complaint was, you do too many different styles. And I remember my cousin and she's like, you got to figure out your elevator speech and be sure of who you are. And I'm like, oh my God, I love doing so many different things. And that might not be a great thing when it comes to being this commercial artist thing, which I am an artist and I'm figuring my own thing out, I guess. But coming back to John, like he always knew who he was. And I think that served him so well in this business.
So you started, like so many people who play instruments, you started out really young. Was that partially because, both your folks play instruments, so it was in the house? It was...
No.
No?
It's not like that at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
I started at 3 years old. My parents...
Late bloomer.
Right. They saw some kids in the newspaper and they had their little violin cases and their violins, and they said it looked like the mafia. That's why they got me in there. But they just thought it looked cute and signed me up for the Suzuki violin method, a classical method of training. And they read the books, did it by the book. I had my lessons every week. My mom went to every single lesson until I was 12 or 13 years old. Wow. Taped every single lesson. You start out with a cardboard box violin and you're...
Hold on. How does that work? I've never heard of that.
Well, they're so cute. They're shaped like the violin, but when you're 3 years old, you have to learn how to take care of this instrument because it's so...
And they're not going to hand you a Stradivarius when you're 3.
No. And so I'm sure if you come back and it's all dented up and stuff, they won't let you have the real instrument until you learn how to put it in the case right and all these things. So I remember having this little cardboard box and you still, and a stick. Not a real bow. And if you didn't know, sometimes the bow can be way more expensive than the actual violin. Fun fact. But yeah, so you learn how to take care of this, and then your parent learns alongside with you the first 2 or 3 songs. So at 3, your attention span is that little. So I remember them leaving my violin out. So when I'd walk by, it's easier than getting it out of the case. So you just see it and you're like, hey, that looks fun. And I'm learning this. So, and then your parent is right there beside you to kind of facilitate that learning time. And, eventually it became, I have to practice an hour a day. But when you're 3 years old, it's like, we'll take what we can get.
Yeah.
And I hear these stories. I don't really remember. I mean, I always remember having a violin in my hand, but it's fun to hear Mom talk about all these things. And if somebody has questions for me, these are like stories that I remember hearing, because at 3, I just remember my violin was just always there. And my parents, it was so much of them being right there beside me and taking me to, Lord. I remember when I got a little older, I would be in a couple different orchestras, church orchestra, another youth orchestra, my private lessons, my fiddle lessons, any fiddle player that was in a 4-hour radius. Like, we were going to lessons all the time. I'd have 3 and 4 gigs or orchestra, different things like that. So it had so much to do with them just pouring themselves into me.
So you start young and all that happens, and then you're very lucky you had that support. I know there are a lot of kids who like to do things and they don't get that support. It's challenging. They probably saw it. Obviously, you're so young before you did. When did you know, hey, I'm good at this?
And you're right, because I remember my mom telling me stories that even the teachers would tell her, please don't let Jenee stop doing this. She really has an ear for this and whatnot. And she said she didn't know. So she took their word to heart. I think for me, I knew I always loved playing music, but I remember the very first studio experience I had. I stepped in the studio, I think around 11, put on those headphones, heard my fiddle coming through there, probably with all this reverb. And it just sounded so glorious.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember telling myself, like, where do I go to do this all the time? And I started connecting the dots that Nashville's the place to go. I was only 2 hours from Branson, so it would have been really easy for me. And everyone always said when I was a little kid, oh gosh, you got to go to Branson, see if you can make it in Branson.
Make it in Branson.
But I'm not 80 yet.
Me and Jim Stafford will tear it up.
We're going to get this thing done. If only I could play on Wildwood Weed.
And somehow I knew, you go to Branson and you play the same show every single night. And I did love to perform, but for whatever reason, I would go up there and see shows. And actually I went to Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, and did some little stints in those theaters and stuff. But it was fun for a minute, but I just knew my heart told me to go to Nashville. So it was around 11 years old when I heard my fiddle through the headphones. I was like, I knew I loved it, and I was going to hopefully live out my dream someday and move here and make it.
Yeah. Well, now you've made it, and now you're stepping out and doing your own band thing?
Yeah.
How's that?
I love the name. Woodmark's Heroes is pretty great.
Lord, if you knew what it took to get to that name.
Oh, yeah.
We could write a whole book on it. Yeah. But we've heard a lot of people say they love the name. And yeah, it's been a fun adventure. It's all really started with Josh Martin, which I know Josh. And
great guy.
Oh, yeah. Great songwriter, singer, and just a great guy. And so we were doing these shows up in Michigan in the Petoskey. I don't know. I didn't know much about that part of Michigan, but oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And maybe it's a little secret. I don't know. They might not let me.
They're like, oh, she's ruined it.
Yeah, right. But the past couple years, 3 years now, I guess, during the summer, we go up there and we're up there for about 10 days and do a bunch of shows. And a couple years ago, this group went up there, and I remember telling Josh and everybody, I'm like, oh my God, it's like these people have never heard music before.
Wow.
I'm like, is it because we're pretty good, or like they really haven't heard music before? But, we felt this chemistry with the band. And I looked at Josh last year and I said, my God, is this a band? And everybody kind of looked at each other and we're like, whatever. And I was like, if not everybody's into the idea, then I don't want to do it, because it's all or nothing. And so we started making phone calls to each other and like, do we want to go in and record some music? And yeah, everybody was into the idea. So we did. And oh my gosh, it's brought me so much joy. I would hate to think I would have never done this, because it's brought me that much joy. And here I go.
Okay, I was going to say, what's the time on this?
Now 13 minutes.
Okay, so we'll get an average of how long between cries.
13. Yeah, that's a pretty good stretch, though.
Okay, good. Okay.
We're just asking the wrong questions. We got to ask better questions to make sure.
Right, hard to string. So we have an EP out right now, and then we've already recorded some more music. So hopefully, really soon, we'll be releasing some new music. We did our Opry debut a couple months ago. We're playing the Opry again soon, and just trying to book some shows. And
congratulations!
Thank you.
That's incredibly exciting, because when you've done it at the level you've done it at for so long, to now, maybe finally, I don't know if that's the word or not, but to finally actually say, okay, this is ours. This is something we get to do the way we want to do it, and we're going to go out there and see what happens.
I think for me, my one main goal when I moved to Nashville was to be a session musician, and that's what I get to do day in, day out. And there's also these other goals and dreams in my head. And I'm a songwriter, and I'm also a vocalist. And I've always dreamed of being a part of a band like this. So if you're a dreamer, keep on dreaming.
I love it.
So it's really sparked a fire in me for my songwriting. And we're cutting some stuff that I wrote 7 to 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Songs that I really wrote for myself, but never knew if they'd see the light of day. So they are.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
We're excited for you and excited to hear it all.
Thank you.
And to give you an indication, you may have heard of Gwen Stefani, and no doubt, she wrote their breakout song, Just a Girl, as a response to her father getting on to her for driving home too late from her boyfriend's house. So she just wrote this to get her feelings out. And she said, she goes, I never dreamed in a million years anyone would hear this song. I just needed to get on paper what I felt when he treated me that way. And because I was an adult, little did she know it would be their breakout and turn them into so these songs that you've written just for you that you thought were going to be, who knows what might happen with that.
Really well. Yeah. I did not know that about her. Yeah.
Jenee, we're thrilled for you. We're so happy that these things are happening, and it's really exciting to see what this next chapter is going to bring for you after so much success already. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you taking the time to visit us, and we hope you'll come back and see us again.